So, it was announced very early this morning that the WWE is off to Netflix, agreeing to a 10-year, $5 billion deal with the streaming giant that will send a lot of WWE content their way, both in the United States, here in Canada, and around the world. And there's so many different aspects of it that I find so interesting. So for people here in Canada, it's going to be a bit different than people in the States. In the States, it's just Raw, I believe. It might be Raw and NXT, but I'm pretty sure it's just Raw that is heading to Netflix. In Canada, it's everything. The WWE Network on Sportsnet is going to be no more. That deal was up at the end of the year, according to John Pollock of Post Wrestling. So now everything is on Netflix. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, premium live events, the documentaries, all of it, all on Netflix. This is such an interesting idea for, and just an interesting deal for the WWE and for Netflix. For the WWE, it means Raw, the flagship show for the last 31 years, is now off of television and is going to be just exclusively streaming. And that itself, I think, is so fascinating. They keep their over-the-air property, with SmackDown staying on USA Network, and also quarterly specials for the WWE on NBC, in my opinion, hopefully a Saturday night's main event. But this, like, they keep that over the air thing, so it's still like, I don't think anyone is really stumbling upon, like, no one is, oh my, what is this WWE you speak of? What is a SmackDown? But you still have that presence where people be like, oh yeah, let's just flip this on. But moving to a streaming site is, it's interesting. There's no other way to put it. This is so fascinating to me that they are going to be one of the first to put, like, the majority of their content into a streaming platform. It's been done a little bit, like the NFL dipping their toe in with Amazon, and like the PGA, you can stream early rounds and stuff like that. But for the most part, the big stuff has been over the air. Now, the WWE has kind of shifted away from a pay-per-view model, obviously, to the streaming service anyway, but to now have your weekly show 52 times a year being streaming on Netflix, this is, I think, an interesting test case for live streaming on Netflix, because this is not going to be the last move Netflix makes in the live space. They're not just going to be like, all right, got WWE, we're done. This is going to be a move that I think signifies a change in direction now for Netflix, and is a change in direction for the WWE as well. I think that this is going to be interesting. And look, for the WWE, like, the WWE Network was pretty ahead of its time at that point. Like, they were one of the first to really jump in on something like that. Other networks had streaming services, but it was just, you know, whatever. And then UFC announces theirs not too far after, but WWE goes hard into the streaming service world, and it had some hiccups, much like I think this Netflix deal will have some hiccups as well. Netflix has not had a perfect track record of streaming things live. They're going to need to get that figured out, because the wrestling community can be a little unforgiving, I would suggest. But I just like this deal a lot. And I think it's going to be so fascinating to see how it kind of all plays out. But I do think it raises the profile of WWE as they look to kind of legitimize things a little bit now. It's not going to be long, and it is neck and neck right now, that more people have Netflix than cable subscriptions. And so WWE, I think, is going to be at the forefront of all of that. And now, like, it's so fun to see that this kind of thing shake out. Like, I was really excited when the WWE went to Fox with SmackDown, and that hasn't, like, led to a whole. It has shifted things creatively for the WWE, where SmackDown kind of became the main show, right? Like, Roman Reigns and the Bloodline feud played out on SmackDown instead of on Monday Night Raw. That would have been a Raw story for sure 5 years ago. So now, how does this change things? Where, like, is Raw going to be the flagship show again, with SmackDown being over on USA Network? What does this mean for the length of Raw? Netflix, no show before it, no show after it. That don't matter at all. So you can go 4 hours if you want. You can go an hour and a half. Not going to affect the thing at all. So I wonder how that affects that as well. But I just think that for the WWE, this is just a way to elevate things even more. I think they've kind of, like, you look at it, they have kind of tapped out on the cable television thing. And what is the one thing you see every time ratings comes out? And it's, oh, well, 1.3 million people watched Raw this week, and people are freaking out, oh my God, it's over 1 million. And then you remind them, like, you know, it was like 10 not too long ago, probably closer to 6. But it's, oh, well, streaming. Okay, well, now you're in that world. Now you are 100% in that world. And now, do you get, like, do you get a big boost from this? And for Netflix now, they have a stake in the WWE and in this doing well. How much shoulder programming or how much other stuff is there? Like, do we see like John Cena looking to buy his next house on Selling Sunset? Do we get a Drive to Survive sort of storytelling with WWE documentaries and stuff like that? Like, I just think the opportunities now are endless for the WWE to branch off of this. And so I think that is a really, really fun part of it. For Canadians here, I honestly think it's a win. And I know I've done more stuff with the Sportsnet brand lately here with 960. I think Sportsnet really dropped the ball with the WWE network here in Canada. If you want to go back and watch an old show, it is really difficult to try to do that. Sportsnet, like, as recently as 2 Royal Rumbles ago, I had streaming issues getting the Royal Rumble to work. It felt like a thing that they could put on their streaming service, but they didn't really have to put a whole lot of work into it. And I think to do this right, you do have to put a lot of work into it, and Netflix has the capability of doing that. And so I think the opportunity to have the full library over on Netflix is really intriguing. I think having all of the shows still be in one place is really interesting and really exciting. Because, like, we here in Canada, we go to TSN, basically TSN Plus, for all of our AEW, and now we just go to Netflix for all of our WWE, so it makes life really, really easy. But I think Netflix is probably going to do a better job with this streaming service than Sportsnet was doing. And it's interesting for what it means for Netflix now. Like, there had been some talk about them being involved in Formula One discussions. There's been some talk about them, they live streamed a golf event. They've apparently been in on NFL discussions, but they've kind of been and maybe Netflix will get into it too. Now this puts them, not to use the wrestling term of the head of the table, but this puts them at the big kids table for this. And it's not, oh, well, now they have WWE. Well, now we respect them. It's not that. It's just now they have shown they're willing to put $5 billion into a live streaming service and everything that means after it. So I think now with the NBA rights being negotiated right now, they become a player in that. I think it would behoove networks like or leagues like the NHL, MLS, and all of them to get involved with Netflix as well. So I think it kind of changes the sports streaming landscape, or at least has the potential to change the sports streaming landscape. I wonder if it kind of ups the timeline for an Amazon a little bit, or it ups the timeline a little bit for like an HBO Max, or here in Canada, a Crave, for Apple Plus. You know, they had a really good deal with MLS, and they have a pretty good deal with Major League Baseball as well. Does this kind of speed up their timeline a little bit more? So I think that this is such a fun first step into the live streaming world for Netflix. And obviously I do, like, it ties directly to me. I love this stuff, as you can kind of see in the background there. So I think this is a whole lot of fun. And for the WWE, like, there's a lot of talk now, like, does Raw stay to Monday night? And they have said for now, Raw stays on Monday, but they are not tied to anything. And like the advantage of being on Monday night for USA is, like, the Law and Order reruns or whatever airs on USA, those get absolutely annihilated by Monday Night Football and by the national championship game in college, and by in college football and basketball and those sorts of things. But Raw has, at least now it's dwindled, but Raw has a devoted audience that will watch it every week. Netflix doesn't really care when they're watching it, quite frankly. And so I'm sure, like, they're putting $5 billion into this. They would like people to get it, but it doesn't have to be on Monday to counteract a loss of audience that you would otherwise have, just to try to salvage a number. That they can put it wherever and whenever. And so going Monday against the NFL, honestly, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially with what ESPN has been doing in making Monday Night Football more of a priority with the National Football League and things like that. So does Raw move for Monday? Would not be surprised at all if it does. I like Monday for Raw. I like even AEW being Wednesday, having to wait from Saturday or Sunday to Wednesday to wait for a response and a what happens next. It just sucks. And so if I had to wait till Tuesday or even Thursday, that'd be a bit of a bummer, I would say, for me. So maybe like NXT goes on Monday, Raw on Tuesday. Do you keep SmackDown on Friday? Do you go SmackDown Wednesday? I think that there's like this just starts so many different conversation paths coming out off of just this one announcement. Business-wise for the WWE, I'm certainly not a business expert. If I was, I wouldn't have got into the profession I did. But you see the number, right? And it's 10 years at $5 billion. Well, there's an option for 5 years. Sorry. There's also an option for 20. So big gap in what that could be. But $5 billion is a lot of money. But that would have been a significant, relatively significant raise for the domestic, the US rights. But now when you're lumping in Canada and the UK, and I don't believe India is a part of this one, which will make that deal so huge for them. But you're lumping in all these international ones as well. It's really not that big of an increase for them financially. So I wonder if there is another revenue stream that we are not thinking of with this group, or something along those lines. Like the streaming, the network rights are coming up in a little bit. They're going to get probably a lot from that. So that will be, I think, kind of fascinating to see how that all plays out as well. But this is, it's so much fun. For the rest of the wrestling world, because AEW's rights are also coming up, it does take something away. Not that I think a lot of people thought AEW and Netflix were a marriage, but WWE gains a partner in Netflix and doesn't really lose one. I guess they do lose Fox, but they stick around with NBC as well. So there hasn't been a whole lot falling off. And I think it makes it more and more likely that they are going to stick with TNT. And I wonder now, with the WWE main shows, at some point, like in Canada now, or at the start of next year. But if at some point all the WWE Premium Live events are on a streaming service that most of their fans are paying for anyway, does that make it all the more untenable to keep doing pay-per-views? And especially now that it seems like they're upping their pay-per-view count to one time a month. So I think it does help the wrestling world that Netflix is so invested in professional wrestling now, but it does, I do think it kind of takes away a little bit of an opportunity for some of the smaller guys. Another big part of everything that went down today is The Rock is part of the board of TKO now. And I don't know, like, if that means all of a sudden he's going to be the GM of Raw and we're going to see him at every big show here on out. But it's nice to have him fully back into the WWE family. And I think we're probably definitely seeing him at WrestleMania. We kind of knew that one already. Him getting trademark of The Rock is really interesting, and I think allows him to branch off and do a little bit more things as well. Not that he needs more things to do, but just having that guy and having that name brand value behind you, I think can only be a good thing. So it's cool that he is around. So that is everything on the new deal. Overall, I think I said it a million times, I'm so interested by this deal. I'm fascinated to see what WWE does with it. If it is just Raw, NXT, SmackDown on and PLEs on Netflix, and a couple documentaries here and there, and that's it, then it'll be a bit of a bummer. But I do think that there is a lot of room for growth with this deal. And I think it does really signify a sea change. And maybe it does speed up a lot of these other leagues going more exclusive to the streaming side of things.